Hi, it's Dr. Shirley North again from North Star Physical Therapy. And again, I want to welcome all those that are new to listening to this podcast. And for those returning, thank you so much for all your support. It's been amazing to see the outreach we've been able to have with this platform and to be able to really share some really good information and to help educate and to start conversations. That's my biggest thing with us during this podcast. It's just to be able to normalize some conversations because we need to. We need to as a culture. And especially this podcast episode really is near and dear to my heart. And the previous podcasts so far have been a little bit more of medical heavy, and I'm talking about certain diagnoses or treatments within lymphatic and pelvic health. And so today I'm going to take just a little bit of a break, take a little bit of a breather from that. And this podcast is coming out in June. So I cannot believe we are already almost halfway through 2025. This year has started off a little funny, a little weird, I think, a little slow. I'm outside of the DC metro area in Northern Virginia. And whenever something happens in DC, we definitely get a different reaction here than the rest of the country immediately. And so this first quarter has been quite interesting, to say the least. But this June, I think, really means a lot to a lot of people, especially my clients and actually some family members of mine who are within the LGBTQ plus community. And so this is Pride Month. And no matter what is happening down in DC, we are still recognizing this here at North Star Physical Therapy, that everybody has a pelvis and everybody has a lymphatic system. And everybody deserves that those two systems to be working together, as well as all the other systems of the body, but to also be used optimally. And so what does that mean? We want to celebrate proper urinary and bladder function. We want to celebrate proper bowel function. We want to celebrate sexual function that's pain-free, okay? And we also want to really celebrate the lymphatic system and detoxing our system, decongesting it. And so this Pride Month is really important. Really should be like every day, right? So we don't need to just dedicate June to this population. But I'm really wanted to stand on this platform and say I treat all of those with the pelvis and all of those with the lymphatic system. So yes, that includes lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, asexual, queer, any kind of fluidity. It does not matter. What does matter is that we respect that as a society, as healthcare providers. And you will notice that all my language is very gender neutral with things. Now, if I need to divulge into terminology that is most associated with a certain gender, then I will do, just to get a better, more widespread understanding. But I really hope in the future we don't have to always make these little caveats. We can just speak freely. So here at North Star Physical Therapy, we are celebrating Pride Month. We are celebrating that everyone is welcome here. And so for those that identify which way or another, express themselves however way, it does not matter. What I'm looking at is that your lymphatic system is being optimized, regardless of, let's say there is like a medication that you may be on and there's more water retention as a side effect. We need to make sure we're handling that. If there is a transition that's occurring, either hormonally and or surgical, you want to make sure that your bladder and bowel and sexual function is all happening the way that it should. It's an amazing feat that as medical and surgical community have been able to develop these techniques to like a vaginoplasty or a phalloplasty, that we can have these resources and be able to change and adapt and more or less recycle in a way of certain anatomy, so that way the anatomy that's desired and that is really what is identified with, that we can do that. And that's so beautiful, because then that makes the person be able to enjoy that their body that they're in, and really all matches together. And so I really just value that here. So I've seen vaginoplasty clients like status post or after that. I also want to put out there that a standard of practice should really be to see a pelvic floor physical therapist before any pelvic surgery, regardless of your LGBTQ or transit, or it doesn't matter, right? It could be somebody that's going through a prostatectomy. You should be seeing a pelvic floor PT prior to that surgery and after. The same thing with vaginoplasty, same thing with phalloplasties, hysterectomy, right? There's so many different endometriosis excisions. So there is a certain level of complexity when someone, for example, a trans male, was born identified as maybe female and is having certain uterine issues, and they maybe have a hysterectomy, but then also throughout their transition, they want to move forward with a phalloplasty, all able to do that, absolutely no problem. But we need to appreciate what prior anatomy or situation was there, so that we are helping as pelvic floor physical therapists prime their body up just like any other body prior to another surgery. So that is that much more a successful surgery. And so that's really the level of complexity I love. I'm that therapist, and I absolutely love the more layers somebody comes in here with. I'm like, yes, let's do it. Let's figure this out together. So I really want to celebrate Pride Month, where we are here at North Star Physical Therapy to help all those. When we are talking about sexual function, it does not matter if you have one partner, no one, multiple partners, if it is a vaginal penetration, anal penetration, if we are trying to return back to sexual function after a phalloplasty or after a vaginoplasty or heck after a prostatectomy, if you have erectile dysfunction, whatever, right? It is all here, and there's absolutely no judgment. And that's where there is maybe some clarity that needs to be, like, what, not only what are pronouns to properly address the client, but also what do you identify this anatomy, this tissue with? What would you like me to call, so we're on the same page? That is a kind of a trauma-informed and a very inclusive therapist. We want to make sure we are on the same page and asking the appropriate questions. So if you hear that, if you see that within different clinics, that's what all that means, is that we're on the same page. So we can move forward and not say any offensive language, or to make sure if I say one anatomy part, you're also identifying as the same part and we're not mix matching each other. Also, when I'm talking to someone about the sexual function, I will ask very pointed questions. And I'm not trying to be nosy and not curious in the way of judgment, but curious in the way like, how are there certain contributing factors to the position, to the lubricant use, to the foreplay, to what's going on, to your symptoms? Or there are some low hanging fruit lifestyle behaviors or positioning that we can nip and address right away that can make such an effect. For example, I had a recent client that had urinary urgency after a pelvic surgery, and it was a vaginoplasty. And so just the vaginoplasty in and of itself. But then we also had this bladder issue too, and realizing that they were self dehydrating, right? Because they didn't want to go to the bathroom all the time. They just had an urge every single time they felt like they filled their bladder. You're working through all these different things. Now, that doesn't matter, right? If they were a trans female after a vaginoplasty, does it? It's a person with a bladder issue that we need to recognize. However, I need to make sure as a healthcare provider, I was addressing them with the right pronouns and I was saying the right tissue anatomy, right, in the words that they will most identify with and be able to connect on. So sometimes we can't always say vagina. Sometimes we say, or like female tissue or erectile tissue for the clitoris, right? Or for the glans penis, we say erectile tissue. So there are certain kind of neutral terminology that we really need to maybe normalize a heck of a lot more. And then, oh, we need to do this and we need to do that. It's like a little checklist as being an inclusive therapist. It's like, we really need to just celebrate like everything. Celebrate everything and everybody. And within Pride Month, I just absolutely adore all of my clients within the community that have been so open to share their stories with me, to share their history with me, to allow me to walk with them hand in hand and by their side throughout their pelvic and lymphatic journey. They are curious along with me and will allow me to ask the questions. So I just really celebrate and thank you all, quite frankly. The LGBTQ plus community has taught me so much about myself as a cis woman, as a mother, as a wife. So that's all very female oriented verbiage there, but really, yeah, as a parent, as a sibling, right? And with my children. And so I just really thank you so much. And want to really celebrate everything that you have contributed to society as a whole thus far that may have been so hush, especially within the medical community. And that I really know that I support you 100% with anything and everything, anything that comes through my emails from the GLMA organization, just to help with rights for those within the LGBTQ plus community, especially those that are 18, 19 years old and trying to get medical care, and for youth as well. It's an amazing time where my children can really see other children stand up for themselves, and it's beautiful. And we just really want to celebrate that here. So this June, please be kind to one another. That just because you may not necessarily totally 100% understand or get the verbiage or the vocabulary doesn't mean it's wrong. Because guess what? Probably years ago, decades ago, you were probably would have been that as well. So we need to be an ever evolution, ever progressive society. That we all respect one another, no matter if we understand or not. We mean respect. So here in North Star Physical Therapy, not only do we respect, but I welcome with open arms LGBTQ plus community and clients. You are a body that deserves optimal pelvic and lymphatic wellness and health, and I am here for you. Let's go, Pride. And until next time.